For the last few months, auto rifles have become more and more prominent within the Crucible. Their average time to kill, accessibility, and relative ease of use are all a part of what makes them so appealing to many players. With there being so many options, both in the form of legendary and exotic, I thought it would be beneficial to showcase which ones are the best of the best. Welcome back to the channel, my name is Man of Cole, and today, let's talk about the best auto rifles to use in PvP. If this is your first time here, I make weekly Destiny videos that range from weapon reviews, guides for different builds, and PvP tips and strategies. If you enjoy these types of in-depth videos, then be sure to subscribe to the channel and click on the bell so you know when my videos get posted. Alright, so I wanted to go over a few things before we get into the specific weapons. If you have seen any of my other best PvP weapon types videos, link to those will be in the top right of your screen right now, and as well as in the description. This video is going to start off with relatively the same format as those. However, I'm going to end it by ranking each of these weapons into which tier I believe they belong to, so be sure to stick around until the end. The second thing I wanted to go over is the criteria for which I chose all of these weapons. Each of the weapons that made this list today had to meet each of the following 4 criteria. The first being the weapons had to have a high ease of use. All this means is that if this weapon is relatively easy to use, it made the list. Pretty simple. The second criteria these weapons had to meet was accessibility. If these weapons were almost readily available for a majority of the player base, then it made the list. The third criteria these weapons had to meet is probably the most relevant to this type of video, and that is their time to kill or lethality. If these weapons had a fast time to kill, then they made the list. And the final criteria these weapons had to meet was their relevance moving forward. What I mean by that is that I did not want to put weapons on here that were going to be sunset this fall in Beyond Light. So I also took into account whether or not these auto rifles were going to be infusible for a long period of time going forward. Because let's be real, you probably aren't going to want to know much about a gun if you won't even be able to use it in game modes like Trials or Iron Banner going forward, right? So with all of that out of the way, let's get started with our first weapon on today's list, Gnawing Hunger. I just made an in-depth analysis video on this weapon, actually it's probably my most recent upload, where I went over all of its possible perk combinations, talked about how its recoil works, and many other things. Link to that video will be in the top right of your screen, as well as in the description for you to check out after this one. This weapon has resurfaced due to being injected into the loot pool. Thanks to the new Umbral engram, Guardians are able to somewhat customize what type of loot they want. One of the loot options is the Gnawing Hunger. And with Umbral engrams being pretty plentiful, this weapon is an extremely easy weapon to farm. The Gnawing Hunger has a 0.70 second optimal time to kill and a 1.2 second body shot time to kill. It has the highest base range stat of any legendary auto rifle in the game with 57, a base stability stat of 54, and an aim assistance stat of 65. One of the biggest reasons people are flocking to this weapon is because of its possible perk combinations. Unlike the other weapons on the list today, Gnawing Hunger is capable of rolling Kill Clip, which is one of the game's most sought after damage increasing perks for PvP. In addition to Kill Clip, Gnawing Hunger is able to roll some pretty good stability perks that can complement its damage increasing perks as well. Synergizing stability perks with damage increasing perks is always going to be the best option in my opinion, which I believe is why this weapon is seeing such a resurgence in the Crucible. The last thing I want to mention about this weapon is that since it has been reintroduced to the loot pool this season, and even though it was in the loot pool for the Reckoning back when that game mode first came out, it actually received a Season of Arrival's power level cap, meaning that this weapon's maximum power level is 1360 light, meaning it can be infused up until next summer for things like Trials, Iron Banner, Raids, etc. This is huge because essentially this means that this weapon will be around and part of the meta for a long time, given that Bungie still decides to keep adaptive frame autos relevant in the Crucible. You should absolutely be farming for this weapon right now if you aren't. Specifically look for any with Kill Clip and a stability perk like Zen Moment or Tap the Trigger. The next auto rifle to make the list today is another legendary energy auto rifle, the Summoner. The Summoner comes in with a base range stat of 46, a stability stat of 47, and an aim assistance stat of 62. The Summoner also has that 0.70 second optimal time to kill and a body shot time to kill of 1.2 seconds. Now, this was the legendary auto rifle last season, as it was relatively easy to obtain this weapon through Trials of Osiris. However, with some more competition this season in the way of the Gnawing Hunger, The Summoner is trying to maintain its throne. Another reason the Summoner is so popular, other than its archetype, is because of some of the possible perk combinations. With perks like Zen Moment, Moving Target, and Dynamic Sway Reduction capable of rolling alongside perks like Rampage, Rangefinder, and even Elemental Capacitor, the potential lethality for this weapon is very high. Despite, at least for this moment, being the most used auto rifle in Trials this week, its numbers are way down from last season, and I think that's partially due to the Gnawing Hunger having more synergistic perk combinations. This weapon is still top tier even if it does get dethroned in the near future. If you have yet to get one but you are hesitant to play Trials, they actually made it a little easier to get the 3-win Trials loot via a weekly bounty that requires a Trials engram. So now instead of needing 3 wins in order to get loot, all you have to do is complete a bounty from Saint 14 and you'll be rewarded. The Summoner's maximum infusible light level is 1310 light, meaning it will be sunset in Season 14, which is the summer of 2021. Our next auto rifle comes in as one of the strongest auto rifles in the entire game, and that is the exotic auto rifle Suros Regime. Suros has been one of the most notable weapons since the early days of Destiny 1. With a base range stat of 50, a stability stat of 49, and an aim assistance stat of 68, Suros comes in as having the fastest optimal time to kill at 0.47 seconds, which we will talk about in a second, and a body shot time to kill of 1.20 seconds. Now, you may be wondering why the Suros has a faster optimal time to kill even though it is the same archetype as our previous autos. The main factor in this equation is the perk Spinning Up, which indicates that holding down the trigger increases the rate of fire. So not only can the Suros fire at a faster rate while this is happening, but it also maintains the same damage numbers as a 600 RPM auto rifle. Hence why we see such a faster optimal time to kill of this weapon. The key word being optimal though, as you need to be firing this weapon for a significant amount of time before the Spinning Up perk actually triggers. Another reason this weapon made the list today is because of its intrinsic perk Suros Legacy, which states that the bottom half of the magazine deals bonus damage and has a chance at healing you upon getting a kill. And if you've got the masterwork for this weapon, that further increases the chance at healing you upon getting a kill. Overall, the Suros is a must-have in your arsenal. And if you haven't tried using it recently, you really should because it is a very, very strong asset to have in your arsenal. The biggest obstacle with this weapon though, is that it is an exotic. And while players don't necessarily have the capability of choosing which exotic they can get, the Suros has been around for a pretty long time and has been sold by the exotic vendor Xur, and was even part of a Twitch Prime loot package a few months ago. So if you still have yet to get the Suros, your best bet is to either run high-leveled Nightfalls, buy engrams from Xur every week, or just strike a deal with RNGesus because, like I said, this is a must-have weapon. Continuing on with another notorious exotic auto rifle, albeit recently, the Hardlight. The Hardlight comes in with some pretty beefy base stats, starting with a base range stat of 46, a stability stat of 68, and an aim assistance stat of 100. Yeah, 100. Out of all the weapons I will cover today, it also has the highest magazine size at 49. Hardlight has the standard optimal time to kill of 0.70 seconds and a body shot time to kill of 1.20 seconds. Hardlight's intrinsic perk is Volatile Light, which states that rounds fired from this weapon have reduced damage falloff, over-penetrate targets, and ricochet off hard surfaces. Projectile damage increases after bounce. This perk was nerfed pretty recently a couple months ago, but still sees some effectiveness in many situations in today's sandbox. You can use those ricochet rounds to still finish off opponents that are one-shot, either hiding behind corners or 3-peeking. One thing that this weapon is known for is its incredible ease of use. If you're looking to improve your auto rifle gameplay, or if you struggle with controlling the recoil of autos in general, then Hardlight is going to be your gun. Not only does it have a recoil rating of 100, which is the best you can get, but if you get the catalyst for the gun, it maxes out your stability rating. So in other words, you will have a weapon that has maximum stability and maximum recoil efficiency. However, with Hardlight taking up an exotic slot and having another perk that just doesn't apply to PvP whatsoever, many people have fallen off the Hardlight bandwagon. This is still an incredible weapon to use, especially for those of you on controller, just based on its ease of use alone. The last exotic on today's list is actually my sleeper pick, and that is the exotic auto rifle Monte Carlo. Having one of the coolest designs in the entire game, Monte Carlo comes in with an optimal time to kill of 0.70 seconds and a body shot time to kill of 1.20 seconds. Monte Carlo has a base range stat of 50, a stability stat of 60, and an aim assistance stat of 50. With its exotic perk Monte Carlo method, dealing damage with this weapon reduces your melee cooldown and grants a chance to fully recharge your melee ability with each kill. It also has the perk Markov Chain, which grants this weapon increased damage from melee kills and kills with this weapon. Melee kills will also grant additional ammo for this weapon. Okay, that was a lot to take in, so what's the TLDR? Basically, all this means is the more you use and get kills with this weapon, the more you will have your charged melee ability, while also giving the Monte Carlo increased damage. It has taken me some time to actually appreciate the incredible synergy that this weapon has, most likely because I exclusively play on my hunter. As a hunter, I use my melee every so often whenever I throw my smoke at an enemy or to block off an area. I also get my charged melee back whenever I dodge near an enemy, which is quite frequently, so I never really got to experience the full effect of Monte Carlo's perks, nor did I ever appreciate how impactful it was to someone's gameplay. It wasn't until one of my friends who mains a Titan told me that he is in love with the Monte Carlo, because he pairs it with the Dune Marchers, an exotic leg armor, which allows him to just go around shotgun meleeing people while his Dune Marchers are just constantly chaining to enemies. I mean, on Titan, this thing is a complete game changer. Paired with the Dune Marchers, which is essentially the best PvP Titan exotic now that Antius Wards got nerfed, this synergy might be the best in the entire game. If you're a Titan, have you tried this combo yet? Please let me know down in the comments if it really is that good. I'm curious to know. The final weapon on today's list before we get into our honorable mentions, and finally my tier list, is a legendary auto that hasn't been injected into the loot pool yet, but I see a ton of potential in it. And that is the Iron Banner exclusive auto rifle, the Forward Path. If you don't want to know anything about this weapon yet and you're wanting to wait for it to actually come out, then go to the time marked on your screen right now to go to my final tier list of these weapons. Alright, so the Forward Path intrigues me a bunch. It is a kinetic auto rifle that can roll with different scopes, as well as 2 brand new perks that are exclusive to Iron Banner weapons. Those perks are Iron Gaze and Iron Grip. Iron Gaze will grant plus 20 to aim assistance at the cost of reducing our range by 40, which seems like a lot, so we might have to wait and see how much it actually is. And secondly, Iron Grip will grant plus 20 stability at the cost of reducing our reload speed by 40. Iron Grip seems to be the better of the two, for this weapon at least, since you can make up for that loss of 40 reload speed by equipping some enhanced auto reload mods on your gauntlets. On top of that, getting the perk Feeding Frenzy, you will probably more than make up for what is lost from Iron Grip. I am very excited to get my hands on this auto rifle, and I plan on doing an entire video highlighting it as soon as it is released to us, which may even be at the time of this video being posted. So make sure you're subscribed and turn on the notification bell so you know when that video goes live. Alright, I've got a few honorable mentions I want to go over, but not super in depth as they all have one pretty significant flaw with them, and that is that they will all be sunset starting next season. As I said earlier in this video, I didn't want to put any weapons on this list today that were going to be irrelevant in a couple months because, well, what's the point of getting it then? But nonetheless, these can still be used to complete bounties or just be used in quick play or comp. The first honorable mention is the Ether Doctor. Ether Doctor is a kinetic legendary auto rifle that can be dropped by killing the bosses in each of these lost sectors. The Weep, located right next to the Winding Cove fast travel location, is by far the fastest way to farm for this weapon, as you can just fast travel back to the Winding Cove as soon as you kill the boss in the lost sector. It took me about 5 tries before I got one to drop, and lucky enough I got a pretty good roll on it. Ether Doctor. Solid weapon, pretty fun to use and really easy to grind for. The next honorable mention on our list is the Arc Logic. Arc Logic is another legendary energy auto rifle that can be obtained by completing objectives from Eris Morn and earning Dreambane engrams. Comparatively speaking, Arc Logic has some of the lower base stat numbers out of all of the auto rifles on today's list, but it can still roll some decent perk combos. Overall, can be a solid auto rifle to use, however the weapons listed earlier will benefit you much more than this one will. Our last honorable mention is the Galliard-42 XN7568. For the sake of my voice, I'm just going to refer to it as Galliard. Galliard is yet another legendary energy auto rifle that is obtained from crafting a weapon bounty in a Black Forge armory. Honestly, the Galliard has some pretty nasty possible perk combinations. The only thing it doesn't have going for it is that it's going to be sunset after this season. I'm also not quite sure how easy it is to get, as I actually didn't play Destiny very much during Black Armory, but overall this is actually a pretty solid weapon, taken out by the Sunset Hammer. Alright, now on to the important part of the video, the tier list. I've broken the list down into just 3 categories: S tier, A tier, and B tier. I didn't put a C, D, or F because why make a video about guns that are bad? ? So the lowest grade I'm giving today is a B, full disclosure. My rankings were highly influenced by my criteria that I stated earlier in the video. These are 100% my opinion. Some of you may think differently on these, which is perfectly okay. Let me know if you would switch any of them up. Alright, let's get started with the Gnawing Hunger, which I'm placing in the S tier. Look, I am all in on the Gnawing Hunger right now. With its incredible perk combinations, high damage output, and extreme accessibility right now, there's absolutely no reason that this should be anything lower than the S tier. It perfectly meets all 4 criteria with flying colors. Gnawing Hunger, an easy S tier. Next, we'll go with the Summoner. I'm placing the Summoner in the A tier. The Summoner is relatively easy to obtain, has some pretty good perk combinations, but compared to the Gnawing Hunger, it is just barely missing out on some really good synergistic perks that also pump out high damage numbers. For that reason and that reason alone, it is in the A tier. It's still an incredible option though. Next up is the Suros Regime, which is being placed in the S tier. Any weapon that has both the fastest time to kill and heals you on a majority of the kills you get with it should undoubtedly be in the highest tier of any list. There should be little to no question with this choice, with the only minor setback being that it is an exotic. Up next is the Hardlight, which I am placing in the B tier. The Hardlight was kind of tricky for me. It is incredibly easy to use and very forgiving for players that have a hard time controlling their aim. But when compared to the other weapons on this list, its perks just don't benefit the player as much as the other weapons can. I still highly recommend people use it, but with no damage increasing perks other than having to forcibly shoot your bullets not at the target in order to do more damage, this is going in the B tier. Monte Carlo is our next auto, and at first I was placing it firmly in the B tier because I felt as though it was forcing you to play a certain way, a la using melee abilities as much as you can, in order to get the most benefits from its perks. But I was convinced by one of my Titan friends that it is indeed a beast when used appropriately and on classes other than Hunter, which I am notably biased towards. So the Monte Carlo is going in the A tier. Still not quite on the level of the Suros and the Gnawing Hunger, but I could be convinced again that it could sit up there with the big boys. And finally, the Forward Path. I won't spoil anything about the weapon yet, and I'm having a hard time trying to figure out where to place this weapon, but with the right perks, I would probably place this in the A tier. We are still unsure of the new perks and how they will work, so I'm going to reserve my opinion for a later time. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you. And as a thank you, I've got a special giveaway that I would like to give to those of you that have stuck around. I'm going to give away a code for the 3rd Mark of the Collector emblem to one of you all. All you have to do is be subscribed to the channel, like the video, and comment something with #emblem at the end of your comment. I will reply to the winner and have them DM me on Twitter for their code. That's gonna do it for the video though. Links to my Twitch, Discord, and Destiny clan are all in the description box below. Thank you all very much for watching. A positive rating is always appreciated, and as always, we'll see ya.